Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers, songwriters, and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is a member of the reggae rock band Black Creek Rain. They have been electrifying audiences for close to a decade. Known for their conscious lyrics, island vibes, and gritty power chords, the band combines their Caribbean heritage of reggae and soca with the sounds of hard rock and blues. They create a unique and accessible soundscape that entertains and speaks out against injustice both past and present. So, let's spill the tea with Darren Armoogam. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you for having me.
Darren, let's talk about some things that are in that intro. You have Caribbean roots, Trinidadian roots. You were spent a short period of your life in Scarborough when you were you were passing through it, and you live in Toronto, one of the great metropolitan cities, not just in Canada, but worldwide. So how, with being removed from Trinidad for so long, being removed from the Caribbean all your life, how do you still get those influences? Was it from family? Is it something that you just feel in your bones? Like, where do you get that Caribbean reggae soca sound from?
So, funnily enough, I have always been attached to the West Indies. Ever since my brother and I were babies, small kids, we were always going back to the West Indies at least once a year. So collectively now, I had done the math the other day, and I've been to Trinidad specifically about 16 times in my life.
Mm.
And I've spent anywhere from like 2 weeks to 5 weeks at a time. So over the course of all of those trips, I spent about a year in Trinidad over the almost 34 years that I've been around. So I was always in and around the music, the culture, the food, the family, the everything. My dad and my mom always were listening to music, specifically calypso music, which is born and raised in Trinidad itself. It wasn't a huge like reggae soca household. They'd have their tracks in their old school 80s kind of power soca records, but for the most part, it was actually a lot of calypso that kind of kept me grounded to like the West Indies. So it's because I've always been around it, I never really felt like I left it, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense at all.
The Caribbean sound, and when we think about Bob Marley and artists of his generation, there is always that talk about social injustice, which you've adopted in your music as well. Where does that influence come from? Does it come from the music? Does it come from the culture? Where do you get that inspiration from?
For me personally, I am a walking in-betweener, as I like to say. There's nothing about me that falls into any one specific assumed stereotype. I look like I could be from any region of South India you could name.
That's
And
true. Yes.
and many people are surprised when they find out that the last almost four generations of my family were born and raised in the West Indies, right? Because I don't look a certain type of way. And if even being born and raised here, I play a lot of guitar. A lot of our music is hard rock, blues, funk origin, which again, somebody who looks like me, at first glance, most people wouldn't assume that's what's going to come out of the guitar, right? To further that, since my folks moved to Canada in the late 80s, I was surrounded by, frankly, few people who looked like me growing up in elementary schools in North York and Toronto. And everybody assumed one look at me that I'd be like a Hindu kid or like something
Yeah.
to that. But my grandfather is actually a pastor in the West Indies, and they opened some churches over there. So when all of the Indian kids would be hanging out for doing Diwali or what have you, I was actually dare I say, with like the white kids doing all the Christian stuff. So, but nobody assumed that I was Christian. Nobody assumed that I was West Indian. Nobody assumed anything about me. So I'm just left out of everything. And so many injustices and I got to see things from such a unique perspective being on, dare I say, the other side of the fence, that it was hard not to feel excluded, like there was injustice being kind of convicted towards my community. I grew up on the short end of the stick. And so when you grow up in those sorts of areas, avenues, instances, that becomes second nature to you. Looking out for the little guy, because you are the little guy, is a part of your identity. And as you said, reggae music, rock music too, has been at the forefront of so much protest over decades, right? And as a musician, when I really wanted to get into this, my bandmate always tells me, there's millions and millions of musicians out there doing this. What do you really have to say? Mm-hmm. What experiences and what words can you put and what sound can you make resonate with the general public that's going to be true and authentic to you? And feeling like you're out of place is one of them. Speaking out towards injustice is one of them. So it just came like second nature to have the music speak what I was really feeling.
Well, we know that rock music or folk music of the early 60s to mid 60s, the late 60s, was all about protesting war. And, prior to that, protesting segregation and things like that. So, poets, I liken singer-songwriters to poets, and poets, it's almost like they're calling to speak out against those injustices. I want to talk about your connection between those sounds, though. Reggae and soca, many people will not put those together with the sounds of hard rock and blues. So how did you come up with that fusion?
It is something I can safely say we did not invent. If you or anybody has gone on YouTube to look at any of Bob Marley's concerts, especially from, say, 1976, 77, 78, when he was doing a bunch of stuff in Europe, so many songs have such a hard rock and blues and folk influence in them. There are blistering guitar solos. There's some wild stuff that you, on the surface, again, you wouldn't assume would be in a reggae song. But Bob Marley, and again, we have discussions in the band room, and one of my bandmates, I think rightfully so, says Bob Marley is really a rock, blues, and folk musician who happens to speak an accent. And so I guess back then they're like, look, this is reggae music now, deal with it.
He was a Jamaican boy trapped in a rock body, or a rock body trapped in a Jamaican boy, something like that.
Something like that. Because it's true. So many of the songs, like there's in titles of roots, rock, reggae. Rock and reggae have gone hand in hand since their inception, frankly. It's just a side of it many people don't really stop to think about. Because you think reggae and you think, oh, Sandals Resort, retired Hawaiian shirts, sipping Mai Tais on the beach. You think that sort of thing,
there
right?
We go.
But
Yes.
It's a lot deeper than that.
You are the front man for the band Black Creek Rain, REIGN. How did you come up with the name for the band?
This is a good question. So, we were originally, when we started out years ago, we were not Black Creek Rain. We were actually a different band. We went by a completely different name. And after that had kind of fallen apart, we decided to form our own thing, Lex and I. And so me living in and around the Black Creek area, I always thought Black Creek Drive was a cool band name. Mm-hmm. And so we called ourselves Black Creek Drive for about a week before I did some further research to determine there was actually a band in Japan, of all places, with the name Black Creek Drive. And I'm like, damn it. Okay. So I like Black Creek. I like that imagery. I like that sort of callback to where I'm from and my roots personally. But then we kind of tinkered around with the third word for a while, and we finally settled on rain. After we settled on it, we realized anytime I say Black Creek Rain, people think RAIN, which frankly is also a cool band name, Black Creek Rain. But we decided, of course, to go with REIGN. And now at every show, I have to tell people, no, it's not rain like what's falling. It's rain as in we're on the like we're on a throne. And they're like, what? And I'm like, never mind.
Now, Black Creek is a street. It's a road in Toronto. Was there any relationship to that Black Creek Drive or Black Creek Avenue so far
Yeah.
as the street?
I spent many years like all of 5 minutes away from that area, that Humber Black Creek area.
Mhm.
I spent many years there. So that to me is what I'm calling back to.
Let's get into one of the songs that Darren wrote. This song was released in 2024. It was co-written by Darren, Kevin Ramlogan, and Lex Stoltz. Let's take a listen to singer-songwriter Darren Armoogam and his song, King of Nothing.
There is violence, there is compliance, there are children crying, dying in the streets. Bloody sustenance for your eminence. Pledge allegiance to the numbers on their screen. Oh, tear it all down, watch as it burns, laugh as it crumbles. But when will you learn? When will you learn? Sitting on a throne of ashes, everything is bleak from winter to fall. Crown yourself the king of nothing at all, at all. This is what you asked for, baby. Everything is dead, it's all your fault. Crown yourself the king of nothing at all, at all, at all. There is violence in the streets when we roll out. Everybody done tired of the stressing and the bailout. Every time I get paid, it's like I'm living from hand to mouth. But you cannot imagine what I'm thinking, but I sure about. How will you say? Don't know that we matching and we not going away. Think you have it all, it don't matter where you're there. Numbers coming strong and we see it clear as day. Listen when me say, yeah, me say, listen when me say. Tear it all down, watch as it burns, laugh as it crumbles. But when will you learn? When will you learn? Sitting on a throne of ashes, everything is bleak from winter to fall. Crown yourself the king of nothing at all, at all. This is what you asked for, baby. Everything is dead, it's all your fault. Crown yourself the king of nothing at all, at all, at all, at all. What you gonna do when your system fail? The innocent and people that you're lying on them in jail. Is everybody lining up like them is robot for sale? How will you listen up before you get paralyzed for real? We going strong, village to tongue. We marching on our way, you say. We here today. I want to see your fist them high, right to the sky. You know what numbers cannot lie. So that is why I want you to tear it all down. Watch as it burns, laugh as it crumbles. But when will you learn? When will you learn? When will you learn? Sitting on a throne of ashes, everything is bleak from winter to fall. Crown yourself the king of nothing at all, at all. This is what you asked for, baby. Everything is dead, it's all your fault. Crown yourself the king of nothing at all, at all.
That was King of Nothing by Darren Armoogam. Darren, tell us, what is that song about and what was the inspiration to write it?
Well, we as Black Creek Rain, as we had discussed earlier, we've been interested in injustice and protest and disruption pretty much since our inception. And King of Nothing, all of us had written various parts of that. When you hear the like raga Caribbean rapping part, Logan himself wrote that. And when you hear like the verses, Lex had his hands in that, and even the choruses, but the chorus, the original version of the chorus that you hear in the song Today, I had written, and I have written this specifically about billionaires. The other guys will have their own specific meaning to them, but for me personally, King of Nothing to me symbolizes the hoarding of resources and the hoarding of wealth. It never ceases to annoy me and frustrate me when you hear so-and-so billionaire has bought their sixth yacht, and there are more seemingly homeless encampments than there ever have been, right? Or when the rich have tax breaks and the middle class and the poor, which are rapidly eroding as we speak, seemingly can't catch a break from the government that they themselves elected. And so you take all of these economic and socioeconomic factors and you look around at what's happening, specifically even in Toronto, and you can't help but feel that that race to the top of who has the most money ultimately equals nothing. And that in and of itself is, I say they are racing to crown themselves the king of absolutely nothing, because you cannot take that wealth when you pass on. You cannot, you hoard all of these things for what purpose ultimately? Nothing good.
Darren, how do people find out more about you and your music? What's the website? What's the socials and the streaming platforms?
You can find us everywhere at Black Creek Rain. And as you have so eloquently pointed out, that's REIGN. We are everywhere. We're on YouTube. We've got some music videos up. King of Nothing was a live action one. The Wall Street was the AI one. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, and we are on Instagram, which is where we are most active. And that's simply at Black Creek Rain.
We have been in conversation with Darren Armoogam, the frontman for the band Black Creek Rain. Darren, thanks for being with us.
Thanks again for having me.
Nothing else.